Hello, and welcome to another Thoughts and Opinions video. Today I'm going to be checking out Mortal Shell Enhanced Edition, and by and large, also Mortal Shell Standard Edition. I've played both, I know what the differences are, we'll get into that. As a matter of fact, we'll get into it now. So the Enhanced Edition basically smooths out the gameplay a little bit. There's not much of a graphical difference, it's just makes the game run a bit smoother. And that is literally it. That's literally all the Enhanced Edition does. The game is a budget title. I bought the Enhanced Edition for £10, but you will have gotten the Standard Edition for free on PS Plus if you're a member of PS Plus. So you may well already have it in your library. If so, obviously give it a download, give it a go, see what you think of it. But for those who are a bit hesitant to sort of risk their time, here's the thoughts and opinions. Now, this game was supposed to be a full series on my channel. I filmed the whole thing. It clocked in at about 20 episodes, I think, and they were between sort of half an hour and 40 minutes each. So that's sort of around the time scale you're looking at for completing the game. I unfortunately accidentally deleted the entire playthrough before I even had a chance to upload it. By accident, I was very frustrated at that. But heyo, at least now it means I get to do a thoughts and opinions video instead. So I'm currently in a New Game Plus state. Not much seems to change between New Game Regular and New Game Plus, but some of the characters have different dialogue, it seems. So I'm going to avoid talking to them to avoid spoilers. What I did, hopefully... okay, it hasn't saved it. What I had done was I'd taken us to where you would start the game, and then I was going to make the journey to this place, as I would in the tutorial. But, this is... can I show you the... Nah, you know what. Right, so, when you... This is a Souls-like, essentially. You have... attacks. There are different weapons in the game. There are also different vessels for you to wander around in. And I say that because my character is not quite what he seems. My character is actually this fella. And he can possess the shells of dead soldiers, basically. As you go through the game, you will unlock new ones. They appear in the crypt as you unlock them. There are 4 total, including the one that I'm in, or 5 if you've got the DLC. This guy here is DLC. The rest of them are all earnable through the game. You just find their corpses lying around in the world. I will show you where you get Solomon from, as he's very close to the starting point, and it's a good place for you to go at the beginning of your playthrough. So the difference between the shells, obviously appearance, but also they have different stats. So for example, TL here has a huge stamina bar, but has less health and less resolve. Resolve means basically the number of times you can parry and use special weapon attacks, and that's the gold bars above my health in the bottom left corner. So they all have different stats, which means that they all play a little bit differently. So that's where you sort of get your playstyle from. On top of basic stats, you also have... so these Sestagenesses are like the game's bonfires, or arc stones. You rest at these, you get all of your health back, enemies respawn, so on and so forth, just like any other Souls game. You can also level up at her, and when I say level up, it basically just means you can buy passives for whatever shell you happen to be in. All the shells have different passives, so I'm using the starting shell at the moment. I deliberately equipped him for the purposes of this video, because this is what you'll start with. Every time you unlock a new passive, you get a little bit of story about the shell that you're in. It tells you a little bit about their background, how they came to die, and things like that. It's mostly nonsensical, to be honest with you, but it's still nice to have something. Let's get into some combat quickly, just to show you some basics, because hopefully, yeah, there are people here. So, it is a Souls game. You can lock on, you can switch between locked on enemies. You have a dodge. It dodges a bit like Neo with some of the characters. Some of the characters have like the double dodge, so it's like a step and then a dodge. Other characters have like a Dark Souls fat roll because they're heavily armored. you can turn to stone, is one of the unique mechanics of the game. You can do this in the middle of attacks. Oh, Jesus. There is a cooldown for it as well, so you can't spam it. So, use it wisely. I didn't do a very good job of showing you. You can also turn to stone mid-attack if you think that an enemy's going to strike you, so you can, like, preempt. It's a very good mechanic. A very, very good mechanic. I would say it should have been expanded upon a little bit further, for it to be, like, a truly, like, well-thought-out experience. But the base mechanic itself is good, and I'm glad it's here. If you die, you have one chance, so you'll get knocked from your shell the first time. And when you get knocked from your shell, you can run back to your shell and get back inside to continue the fight. If you take a single bit of damage when you're out of your shell, you instantly die. But you can only do this once, so if an enemy knocks you out of your shell, you get back in, and then you die again, you're just dead, and you have to go back to your, the latest rested at Cesta Janessa, basically. So where we are at the moment is the central hub of the game. It's called Central Fulgrim. It's basically this tower and then all of the area that sort of surrounds it. You'll come out of the tutorial area and you'll be tasked with going to the tower, basically. The game sort of cryptically tells you to go to the tower. So this is the easiest way in through the back gate. It doesn't look very obvious, but like this is the easiest way in. You'll speak to her and rest up. Let's do that quickly. Get my health back. From there, you're going to head upstairs, and you're going to go through here to talk to this guy. I can't remember his name, so we're going to call him Big Bird, because that's what I called him throughout the entirety of my playthrough. He will give you your mission for the game, and your mission is to go to 3 different temples and basically pillage these sacred glands and bring them back to him. So, go to temple, take treasure, come back here. That is kind of the mission objective. So you'll do one temple, get the gland, come back, and then you'll do it again for each temple until you get all of them, and then you fight a final boss. So to get to the temples, they're all off of different little areas of this main area. So you'll always come back here, and this will always be your starting point. So as a beginner tip, so this is like, your first resting point. Go out this back door, and you want to head into this cave. Inside this cave, there will be a boss when you play. I've already defeated him, so you won't get to see him, unfortunately. But you would defeat the boss. Once you've defeated the boss, you'll get a chest. That gives you a weapon upgrade for this sword, I do believe, which is the starting sword, which enables you to use its ultimate attack. After you've defeated the boss, head around this little back bit here and through this tunnel which is covered by wood. You have to destroy the wood to get through, and inside there you will find a second shell, which is that one I showed you. I said I was going to show you how to get. So you head through there and you get another shell. So that's like a nice little sort of like do that first kind of thing. And here is where the game gets a little bit janky and a little bit awkward. So from the cave, you kind of have a choice. You can either go to your left through this tunnel, or you can go to your right through this tunnel. Now, if you choose to go to your right, you will enter hell. Literal hell. You follow the bike outside. You will go down a path, follow it all the way to the end, and you will enter sort of like the area of the game that is supposed to be the last one you go to. That area is very long, very big, and very, very... It's not difficult, but all the enemies have really highly scaled stats. So, like, you're expected to go there with weapon upgrades and things like that. Even if you do go there with weapon upgrades, it's still an absolute nightmare. The area is just horrific. So we're going to go left, which is where I recommend you go. Because this will take you to one of the other temples, and the other 2 temples are a lot easier, and they're a lot better designed as well. You'll avoid a lot of frustration by simply going this way. it is easy when you first start playing to get lost in Central Fulgrim, like the hub area, because it seems very maze-like, but it's actually not that big. It just sort of seems that way. So I'm hoping I'm going to be able to show you me parrying as well. We'll see what happens. I predict bad things. Oh no, okay. That was me parrying. So there's also bear traps on the floor. Oh, I thought I parried, but it's fine. Okay, there we go. Should miss. Good. The combat is a lot slower paced, I would say, than most Souls games, and it registers all of your button inputs, so don't mash, because the game will legitimately try and attack for as many times as you mash the button, until you run out of stamina, basically. So if you're button mashing, you will wind up doing more attacks than you mean to, so be very aware of what you're pushing. Learn how many attacks it takes to kill enemies and stop pushing the button when you need to. It caught me out a lot in the early days because Souls is a little bit more forgiving generally. Two. Boop. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so you've got your hardened mechanic and you've got your parry. So you'll notice I'm now missing 2 of those gold bars in the bottom left. Every time I successfully parry, it takes one of those gold bars, basically. They get filled up by dealing damage to enemies, but they deplete again if the bar isn't filled. So you have to fill each section before it's saved, kind of thing. So if I half filled one of those bars and then stopped dealing damage, it would start to decay again. So you'll see it now. I've got a half filled one. In a minute, it's going to decay. Yeah, you see it's going down again now. So you have to completely fill it to save that stock of parry juice. There are meant to be enemies here. Oh, okay. So this happens from time to time. Enemies will sort of pop in, like the game's struggling to load, which is a bit odd on the Enhanced Edition. It locked onto the enemy that's like 5 miles away, instead of the one that was close to me. That also happens quite a bit in this game. Okay. So we are going to make our way to the first temple, or the temple that I recommend as the first temple. Once again, it locked onto the wrong enemy for a second there. So we've actually nearly got... Oh, I thought he was done. He is not done. Okay, so I do still have a... Oh, okay. I'm not too sure what the best thing to do here is, because... There we go. Okay, we did it. We did the best thing that we should do. Whoa! So sometimes you can push the harden button a bit too late, you'll take the hit and then you'll just be frozen in that position. Stamina management is a big thing as well in this game. You can and will run out of stamina frequently if you're not careful, as I've already just displayed rather terribly. So. Whoa. Okay, so I think that guy isn't going to come, but this guy probably... Whoa, okay, that's probably death. Hang on. Oh no, okay, well that actually is death. Well, I am going to show you the first temple. You now have seen what death looks like. I am going to show you the first temple. I will have a bit of a hoon run, as we like to say, where we just sort of sprint past all of the enemies to get there. But so yeah, you'll respawn here, and then you've got to begin your journey again. We are going to have to go through that long tunnel again, unfortunately. Bear traps on the floor, which may well be slightly broken. I'm not too sure, because they are supposed to activate when enemies walk over them, but they didn't when I was fighting earlier. So we'll see what happens. So doing runs past enemies in this game can be a little bit more deadly than Souls games, because enemies can chunk your health quite heavily, especially in the early stages of the game. New Game Plus seems to be no exception. Like, the enemies are hitting pretty hard for me, and I'm mostly fully upgraded, so yeah. This game isn't so much of a joy to run through as most Souls games. Like, when you die, there is a distinct feeling of like, oh no, kind of thing. Whereas with Souls, like, generally, I'm kind of quite like almost happy to have another go. That's where so you can collect all of your lost souls. We want to go out. We want to go up here. This guy's going to jump at us. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Ooh. And up these stairs. And this leads us to the temple that I think is a good first temple. It's quite straightforward. It's fairly linear. Most of the temples are fairly linear. They have a couple of little branching side paths, but it's not like labyrinthian maze-like. So we've now entered our first temple. At the temple, you get a cesta at the beginning. That saves your progress at the door. We are just going to buy an upgrade. Like so.
The brigands fell upon us with crude knives.
So you get a little bit of story.
Trailing blood, I stumbled into a cavern.
Some of it is voice acted, and some of it isn't. Some of it is quite easily understandable, and some of it is written like almost gibberish. Like, it's complete nonsense it comes across as. If I were to guess, I would say you're supposed to unlock them in a specific order, but like, the game doesn't actually dictate what the order is, so you'll get bits of the story sort of fragmented, and it's not very effectively delivered. It's a bit of a shame. So also, at the beginning of a temple, you'll get an anvil to upgrade your equipment. I don't have anything to upgrade, so quenching acid is what you need to upgrade your attack power. I don't have any, unfortunately. You can also apply weapon enhancements, which I did in my first playthrough, so all of that's saved. And you can also put skins on a cat, which is a bit strange. But yeah, so... oh yeah, you can also upgrade your parry as well. So your parry, by default, it restores a little bit of health when you successfully hit it. You can give it other effects, like poisoning your enemy, or... oh, actually, no, it's not poison. I think it's an explosion. And there's also one where you jump out of your shell and attack enemies. Also, at the temple, you get these statues with a book next to them. And these are your weapons, basically, the new weapons you unlock. There is one at the entrance to each temple, and there is also one that you get from the DLC as well. I'm just going to show you what that's like. So you will interact with the book. It looks like something out of the Elder Scrolls. It's like a destruction tome. Then you've got like a black hand book next to it. Awesome. Yep, that turns into a spider and crawls inside you. The start of any good adventure. So that's game over. No, I'm kidding. That's just what happens, and it happens a lot. Like, almost everything you touch in this game makes you pass out or like faint or have something crawl inside you. So we go in here, and in order to obtain a new weapon, we need to defeat this guy using it. Let's get back a little bit. Oh, we staggered him. Nice. Is he doing another one? Nope. Ooh. Okay, so he can two-shot me from the looks of it, which is worrying. No, don't like that. There we go. We have 2 parries now as well. Nope. Oh, I pushed that bad. We may lose this. If I can get parry... Uh-oh! I actually did evade. Don't ask me how. Okay. Nope. So we're going to lead him away from my body now. Because we don't want him to, like, one-shot us as we're trying to get to it. Oh, he's actually being a little bit... There we go. Now we're back. There we go. Come on. Give me my... So this happens from time to time. He always gives up really early for some reason. Boom. There we go. So by defeating him, we will get a hold of this weapon now that he was wielding. And it's the same in every temple. Like, there's a different weapon, and you defeat him, you get hold of the weapon, and then you can utilize it pretty much whenever you want. So there's an item that you get. I can't remember if you get given it immediately or if you have to find it separately. But every weapon has an item where you can go into your inventory, click on it, and then it will change your weapon on the fly. What in the world? Pick up. Oh, it gives you a weapon upgrade. Awesome. Huh. I think that's just a new game plus thing, by the way. You didn't get weapon upgrades off of those in regular new game. So you can, once you've beaten the challenge, just interact with the statue, and it will give you the weapon there, and it will, you know, put your sword in there, so you can just swap in real time. But there is also, if you go into your inventory, unlimited use items. So we'll use this one, and then it gives us our sword back, or we can go down, and we can use this one, and it'll give us the mace back. So the weapons have different movesets. They're all pretty good, actually. Like, they all feel unique enough from each other for them to be, like, interesting. And we're going to switch back just because I've upgraded this and I haven't upgraded that. Yeah, I would say they're all very good, very interesting. They're all viable as well, like, as long as you upgrade them. And, yeah. If I were to come up with some criticisms for the game, I would say enemy variety, like, it's not quite as good as I would like it to be, personally. Like, these enemies show up quite a lot. It's the same enemies that were in the swamp. They're just reskinned. You will get more unique enemies in each of the temples, but there's only a few of them in each temple. It's not like a huge variety of them. So, we do actually have one of the more unique enemies incoming. So this guy has a shield. You can break his shield. I actually find these guys pretty difficult. He says not really... Oh god, okay, yeah. Come on. There we go, so he's gone. So yeah, every temple has a few unique enemies. They're not, like, crazy unique. And they get repeated quite a lot throughout each of the temples. Healing is like mushrooms, basically. They are on a global cooldown. They will so those mushrooms will regrow after a certain amount of time has passed, and then you can pick them again. You can go out on farming runs for healing to make sure that you're nice and stocked up for a temple run or whatever. But the healing itself is actually pretty crap. So if you watch my health bar, it's an overtime heal, and once it wears off, I'll just stop healing. So wait for it, and like it didn't even heal me to full, and it was slow as well. So if you're in the middle of combat and you heal, that won't necessarily save you. You also don't get a lot of healing if you just unless you actually go out and farm for it. You will find yourself running out of healing fairly frequently. So rather than go any deeper into the temple, so what would happen is I would go through the temple. They all take quite a while, with the final temple taking friggin' ages. And then at the end of each temple, there's a boss. You defeat the boss and you get a sacred gland, which is what you're after. You then have to traverse all the way back to the central tower where we started. There's no fast travel in this game, so you have to do it all by foot, which is not the best. So yeah, let's do a little bit of a sum up of what I think of Mortal Shell, basically. So the harden mechanic, I think, is great. It's one of the strongest ideas that this game has going for it. It changes the way that you play. It changes the way that you think about each combat situation. Very good. It's a very different mindset to be in, especially if you're coming off of Dark Souls or Demon Souls or Bloodborne or whatever. I also like the fact that you are a foundling who can possess corpses. It's a very interesting idea. I think for a budget title, which this obviously is, the game is gorgeous. It's genuinely really good, and it actually has quite a nice sense of atmosphere as well, like both visually and just sort of like it just has a nice feeling. Feels very bleak, very yeah, I don't know. It's a cool atmosphere. The weapons, all very good, all very satisfying. I wish there were a few more of them, but they are good, the ones that are there. The DLC weapon is a transforming weapon, like in Bloodborne, so it has two modes, which is, again, really awesome. So I would also say, like, Okay, we'll move on to middle of the road things now. Things that I think are kind of okay and sometimes kind of lacking. I would say enemy design. So the first time you face any given enemy, it's actually genuinely thrilling and it's very interesting. But the more you face each opponent, the less interesting it becomes, and it slowly moves towards feeling monotonous, which isn't good. And for the most part, it's not a terrible thing. Like in this temple, for example, and also in the ice temple, which is supposed to be, I think, the second one that you go to. Like, the enemies do get repetitive, but you're not in the temple for long enough for it to get boring. The third temple, however, which is like this obsidian hellscape, the area drags on for such a long time that you end up facing the same enemies for so long you are just like, okay, just get me out of here now. I'm done with it. And that's how I felt. And unfortunately, because it is the final area, it leaves somewhat of a foul taste in your mouth because it's it's the last thing you remember about the game. In terms of boss design, I would say only one of the bosses really sticks in my head as being like a really good fight, and that's the ice boss, which is what I think is probably the second temple for most people. The ice boss is really cool. It feels like a Dark Souls 3 boss fight, essentially. Like it's quite nicely put together, I thought. It was challenging enough, but I had to retry it a couple of times, and very good. The boss here, it has a nice design, but in terms of its moveset, it's very boring, very repetitive. So it looks cool, but actually plays in a very boring way. I actually first tried the boss in this temple, first time I did it. And I was kind of just like, oh, was that it? It has a phase 1 and a phase 2, and the two phases are basically identical. I don't really know what they were going for. And then the boss in the third temple is really interesting to start with, and then its second phase is really dull and boring. And then the final boss of the game, no spoilers of course, but the final boss is fine mechanically, but he has walls of health. Like his health just seems to go on forever. Um, and like I think if the fight had have been about half as long as it was, I would have really enjoyed it. But because it was so long, I ended up just getting bored. And I was just like, "Good Lord, please just like let it be over." Um, so yeah, so the bosses are a mixed bag. They're all visually cool. It's just yeah, like actual mechanically and how they've been designed. Some of them are a bit off. Um, so as I say with like the hard, I liked the hard mechanic and the different weapons, but I will say that I wish they had delved deeper into both of these things. So I wish they'd done more stuff with the hardened mechanic, like maybe tried to evolve the mechanic somewhat over the course of the game. But like, this is it really. You know, like you can use it in the middle of attacking, um, and you can get things that reduce its cooldown and items that give you bonus effects when you harden, but they're like limited use. Um, yeah, it doesn't evolve, and that is a it adds to the monotony of the whole thing, especially in the later half of the game. And weapons, like it's good design to have a new weapon at each temple, but I would have liked to have seen a few more, and I also would have liked to have it so it's a little bit less cumbersome to switch between them. Because like having to go into a menu every time you want to switch weapons, I mean, I could put it on my quick bar, I guess, but that would clutter my quick bar up quite badly. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just want to see more of everything. The same with shells, like the different shells that you get, i.e., the characters you play as. They're all very good, but I wish there were more of them. It would have made exploring the dungeons, the temples even, feel more interesting because I already knew there were only 4 shells in the base game and then 1 in the DLC. But when I found the 4th shell, like my desire to explore just sort of died, and it was just kind of like, well, I just kind of want to complete it now. Um, so yeah, that was one problem that I had. One thing that I will say, you know, seeing as we're still in middle of the road territory here, um, like if they do a Mortal Shell 2 or a Mortal Shell 3, I actually think that on the proviso they expand upon all of these mechanics in the right way, it could genuinely be like an amazing game. Like, so keep your eyes peeled for if they do ever do a Mortal Shell 2 or 3. Because I genuinely think like this game has enough good ideas that, if refined, could make for an amazing experience. Um, so now we're going to go into the points that I really didn't like about the game, like really didn't like. Um, the first thing I would say is like replayability. So like with most Souls games, you know, if you die, you go back to your bonfire, and then it's like, okay, cool, I start the gauntlet again, but I'm going to be a bit better than last time. I didn't get that sort of sense of growth when I was playing this game. I didn't feel like I was learning much past the first temple. Um, every time I died, if I died, it was just like, oh god, like I don't want to do it again. Like, you know, the first time through was fun, but like I don't want to attempt it again. So I found myself running past enemies a lot more than I would do in a Souls game generally. That is not really a good sign for me. Like, there's just something about it. Could be a combination of the enemy designs or the amount of time it takes to get through each encounter. Um, let's just play a loot whilst we're sitting down. It's yeah, it's a shame. Like it's one of those things. Like I think like it perfectly sums up the whole game. To be honest with you, like when you first do something in this game, it always feels good, but with each repetition, it really starts to grind, and it really starts to feel a little bit like ugh again. You know, like um, and in the first 2 temples, it's not too bad because they're not too long. But the third temple, the obsidian one, it goes on forever. It's all big open spaces with copy pasted enemies just chucked everywhere. A lot of the open spaces lead to little dead ends that have nothing in them, and it kind of feels like the whole map was kind of just half finished. Um, and the area goes on for about an hour too long. It's mad. Like, I think it took me 3 episodes just to traverse the area, whereas the other two temples, I was done with the area in 1 episode. So, like, we're talking like, maybe just over half an hour to get through a temple. This final temple was like an hour and a half of me just like struggling. And a lot of it was me getting lost as well, just not knowing what I was meant to be doing. Which brings me to another point, signposting. The signposting in this game is terrible. Like, in Souls games are notoriously bad for signposting, but it's done so in a very deliberate fashion. It's like, if you're going the wrong way, you will very quickly realize that you're going the wrong way in a Souls game. You'll be like, okay, these enemies are like out of my depth. This wasn't the case with Mortal Shell. I took a wrong turn at the beginning and went to the obsidian area, and I got stuck there, and I was kind of like, yeah, this feels like it could just be how hard the game's supposed to be. I wasn't having fun, because I was like feeling like I was hitting brick walls every 2 seconds, but like it felt kind of doable, so I was like, okay, we'll keep pressing on. Only for me to later then check a route guide out online and figure out that's supposed to be the last area I go to. So I exited the area with great difficulty, I might add, and I started again down the proper route, and I had a much smoother experience. But the fact that you can take that wrong turn at the beginning, and the game just does not give you any kind of pre-warning that it's gonna sort of be as long and easy to get stuck in as that final temple is. It would have been nice if like an NPC like just outright was at the entrance, like maybe the Sesta Janessa, if she was standing there and you talk to her and she's just like, oh, like, already here so soon? This is supposed to be like, end game area, dude. But you don't really get any of that. It's a shame. What else? I mean, honestly, that's kind of it. This is a game that I think has a ton of great ideas, but it's kind of wasted a lot of, not wasted a lot of them, but a lot of them aren't enough to fully carry the experience in their current iteration. They wear thin a lot faster than the game is ending. So, that final leg of the journey just feels pretty bad. You don't really feel like you're gaining anything. You feel like you just want to see the final conclusion, and then that's it. And that was kind of how I felt. By the end of my playthrough, I was like, yeah, I just want it to end now. And once it was over, I had no desire to come back to it. I have the DLC, and I did do a video on that as well, which also is never going to see the light of day because, again, it got deleted. I was very hesitant to even do that video because I wasn't enjoying the DLC. I was kind of done with the game. The new shell and the new weapon from the DLC are good, but it gives you like a roguelike mode as well. And the roguelike mode is terrible. Well, it's not terrible, it's just not the best roguelike, really. You just get chucked into this same map, and the enemies are somewhat randomized, not a lot though. And you have little perks that you can get for clearing out areas of enemies and stuff that are just for your run. And it's just all very monotonous and repetitive, and it's not what I would call a good foundation for a roguelike. It needs to have a lot more work done to it if they're planning to do a roguelike experience in a game like this. Story is terrible. It's not terrible, it's just poorly told. Souls games have always been known for doing their sort of backgroundy storytelling, so it's like environmental storytelling and like NPCs offering you like little nuggets of information. This game tries to do the same thing, but it doesn't quite hit the nail on the head. The story comes across as quite convoluted, very difficult to follow in places because like you're acquiring perks to get bits of story, but the story isn't necessarily in the right order, so it doesn't always make sense. Let's change song. So yeah, the story for me was a bit of a miss. The ending is very predictable, very, very predictable. Like if you don't guess what's going to happen by the end, then you haven't been paying attention. Like, there's not really much mystery there. It's kind of like you almost instantly work out what's going to transpire. I would say. I mean, I called it within the first episode what I thought was going to happen, and it did. Exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. Um, um, Oh, there is something else actually. So, items have. This is actually a good thing. I forgot to mention in my good things. So, items have familiarity. Let's find something I've not used. So, yeah, so if you look at the item description, it won't actually tell you what it does until you use it. So you have to use an item to discover its effect, and then the more you use it, you get more familiarity. Once your familiarity is maxed, items unlock additional effects. Sometimes, not always. A good example is the loot that we were playing. So you pick the loot up at the beginning of the game, and when you start playing, he doesn't have any skill with it. He's just like plucking strings and it sounds out of tune and it's not great. But the more you use it, the better at the loot he gets up until you maximize the familiarity with it. And then you can play whatever song you want on the loot and it's always flawless. Um, it's a very cool idea, and I like it a lot. The fact of not knowing what an item does when you first pick it up can lead to some hilarious situations. These poison mushrooms, for example, um, eventually they give you immunity to poison damage if you get your familiarity to max. But the first, I think it's like 9 times you take it, it just poisons you. Like, so I was in a fight, and I had these mushrooms on my quick bar, and I'd never used them before. And I was like, oh, it's another mushroom. Maybe it'll be like a better healing. Nope, just poisoned me and killed me. I was like, oh dear. um, but like, it wasn't like frustrating in a bad way. It was frustrating in a hilarious way. And I actually quite liked it. I liked that mechanic. The fact that that could happen was genuinely amusing to me. Um, and I like that, persisting with it and getting familiarity with it actually does benefit you in the end. So yeah, that's a good mechanic. But unfortunately, I honestly have to say, for me, this game is an avoid. Um, I, I I hate to say it, it just is. Usually, usually I would sort of give a reason why it, could go the other way, but I think after playing it, like once you've experienced the central mechanics, it kind of stops being interesting. Actually discovering the central mechanics is interesting, but everything past that, it kind of loses its way, I think. The game goes on for way too long. The final area felt unfinished. The final boss had way too much health. Um, the whole thing felt like a slog and a chore, and it's a shame because there are some good ideas here, like genuinely some really, really good ideas. And if they're refined and they come back with Immortal Shell 2, I'll definitely be checking it out because I think if they do annihilate some of these annoying bits to the game, you could have something that is genuinely really fun. Um, and that's kind of where I'm at. So, it's an avoid for me, but it's a keep an eye on the people that make this game because I think that they could make something really special if they keep going with it. I don't know if they're going to, but hopefully they will, and they'll come back with Mortal Shell 2 because, yeah, I think they could have a very strong sequel if they do it right. So, yeah, that's my thoughts and opinions, really. So, thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Farewell.